Hello YouTube, it's Lion here with Hobbies of a Man once again, and today we are doing another book review. Now today we are going to be reviewing Brink City by Dante King. This is a new series by Dante King that just released a couple weeks ago. Well, actually more like a couple months ago now. I've just been behind because of university. Now that that's over, I'm back on the grind, I guess. So the author is Dante King. The publisher is Amazon. It's self-published through Amazon by Dante King. And the genres here are urban fantasy and harem. Now, I call it urban fantasy because although there's a lot of elements of epic fantasy and that whole kind of like larger-than-life, world-ending, doom is upon us type of situations, at the end of the day, it's about a guy in a modern interpretation of Earth in this kind of like seedy underworld of magic. And, you know, that's what urban fantasy is. So, the premise here is that this mobster underling, this like demi-human, semi-magical guy, gets tasked with starting a branch family / operation in Brink City, which is this like city in the middle of the United States that just kind of has a lot of weird, crazy, like magical people living in it. And when he gets there, shit goes to hell, and now our mobster character needs to carve out his own family operation in this city. Now, this book is so good. The execution of the very interesting and unique premise is very well done. I really enjoy a lot about this story. However, I do have to be honest with you guys, there are some problems with the continuity in the world building and like some inconsistencies with the world building. And I'll talk about those at a later point, right? But overall, I do want to keep in mind for you guys that I liked this book a lot. And the critical things that I'm talking about might actually not even be relevant by the time you watch this video, because authors on Amazon have the ability to update and fix their books as, you know, stuff happens. So anytime that they get a problem, they can fix it really easily. And by the time that you read my review or you watch my review, it's possible that those issues no longer exist. Let's just get into the evaluation here. So the plot line is great. It's very interesting. The idea is very unique, very good. And the execution is pretty damn near impeccable. Plotline wise, I think there's nothing really to complain about. It's very well done. It's a linear progression from, you know, arriving at this place after like a big fight that introduces the character and like the situation that he's going to find himself in. There's a lot of political dealings. There's shootouts. There's interesting changes of pace here with like the difference between having to have a political like interaction based problem solving situation, and then where that doesn't work, you just have to shoot out people and hope that you don't die. And there's a very good interlacing of those two types of problem fixing, I guess, or like those two approaches to fixing a problem that ends up being a very nice like ride with a lot of up and down, and you get a lot of action for you know, both sides of that, and I really enjoy it. So basically it's the introduction with you know, a shootout, and then our main character and one of the female characters get sent to Brink City. They try to do their first deal there, and there's a lot of plot in terms of personal development and like of the characters and developing their motivations for creating this, you know, mafioso empire, this mobster empire. And then expansion of operations and stuff like that. And we can see that Dante King seems to like certain types of plot lines here. That whole kind of situation in Creation Mage, which by the way, if you want to watch reviews for that, they're up there. Where, you know, our main character goes into this new world, figures out that his parents were relevant people to this place, and that, you know, there's something sinister going on, seems to happen here as well. And it's not really a problem. but it's there and it's kind of like noticeable. But I think it's a good plot point, and it's something that is really, useful, because having that sort of familiarity of general plot points is not bad. It's actually quite helpful for readers to kind of ease into the book faster and enjoy it a lot more, because they kind of build expectations, and as long as it meets those expectations minimally, you have a good, understanding and enjoyment of the book. So it's fine. It's just noticeable there, right? And, overall, it's really good. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really nicely done. I enjoy that change of pace, like I said, between, okay, we had to shoot out someone. Okay, now we had to fix it politically. Now we have to shoot out someone. Then we had to fix it politically, and so on and so forth. And it doesn't feel boring, or it doesn't feel like there's a pattern to it. It all works really naturally and nicely done. So I can't complain about anything technical in the plotline element or the way that the story develops. I can't complain about the world building, but that's not really a problem. I think it's just because of the way that Dante King writes. But from what I've seen and the way that he expresses his ideas, I think he is a discovery writer. And so all of those world building elements / plot hole things that happen aren't really bad. It's just like someone needed to read it over one more time with like a bit more of a critical eye. But like I said earlier, those problems might not even exist by the time you read the book. So don't worry about it too much. Now let's talk about the characters before I jump into the world building. So we have our main character, Matthew, who is an Umbra. Now, Umbras are these like semi-magical people. I don't understand exactly how it happens, but I think that they have otherworlder blood in them, which is like monsters, right? Like monster people, magical people. I think that they have some sort of bloodline element there, and then it develops into a mutant X-Men style power related to some sort of magic. Matthew has the ability to sense malicious magic coming at him or happening around him, and it's really useful as a mafioso or as a mobster in New York City, where magic is pretty rare, but in Brink City ends up being a little bit more difficult to use it. And he's a mobster. He's a gunman. He's kind of like the right-hand man of the big bad. And he has a sidekick, which is his his adopted brother, Lennox, who is a goblin. And he's very interesting. He's very funny. He's like a crazy scientist, and he provides a lot of the comic relief that we need in a situation like this. I think he's kind of like, if you combined a Chaos Bane with Nigel from Creation Mage, and you put them together into like this weird scientist guy, that's what you get with that's when you get Lennox. It's very interesting, and he plays a pivotal part in the plot line very early on, and I really enjoy his character, although he can be a little bit of an annoyance, but overall he's pretty cool. Now we have two female characters. The first one is Alicia Balducci, who is a tigerkin. She's the one on the cover. She's like a cat girl, but she's a tiger. And basically, imagine Chitara from Thundercats, but like instead of a cheetah, she's a tiger. And that's basically what you get. She's the daughter of the mobster, Mr. Balducci, or Don Balducci. And she gets sent with Matthew because, Matthew, although he's a right-hand man, he's not really a family member. And so the Balduccis don't really trust him to do what he needs to for them, right? So she gets sent with him. And then we have the second female character, who is Macy. Now, Macy is a Korrigan. And as far as I understand it, a Korrigan is a dark fairy. And she's the driver, and she joins Matthew's operation eventually. And she's also a mobster, obviously. I really enjoy her as a character, and I really enjoy different magical creatures. She has a specific power related to being Korrigan that kind of plays into one of the issues in the world building, so I'll talk about that later. Now we have a few side characters, and they're basically all women, so I'll just go through them really quickly. We have Captain Shepard, who is a cop. She's like a really honest, idealistic type of cop, and she's trying to clean up the city, which she'll probably never succeed at, but she's a good contact to have. And she's kind of an angel, basically. I think they call her a celestial, but she's basically an angel. And they have Bosco, who is a crooked cop, and she's a dryad. I really like her character. It's really interesting. She's really flirty, and there's really not much development for her, but she seems to be someone that's going to become relevant in book 2. And then the last important side character is Charlotte, who is a fawn, which is the same thing as a satyr. It's just someone that's like half goat, half human. So it's like a minotaur, but instead of a bull, it's a goat. And I guess it depends on which interpretation. You could really make it any type of hoofed animal, like a deer or a sheep or something like that. So I think fawns are supposed to be goat men. And that's what the assumptions are when I go in with the book. Now, there's one problem with the characters here, and it's actually not really necessarily with the characters. It's with the way that one of the characters expresses himself. So, Alicia Balducci is supposed to be an Italian immigrant / person that lives in New York. And so she uses Italian phrases. Now, the problem is that a lot of the phrases aren't written correctly. And I know this probably doesn't matter to most people, but I do speak a Romance language. I speak Spanish. And I noticed all of these problems off the bat because although Italian and Spanish are not the same thing, a lot of the rules are very similar. And so I noticed that a few things were wrong. Actually, I think just about every time that there was Italian was spoken, it was not correct. And I can actually, provide some of that help, right? Because it's not really that difficult. Like the first thing that popped to mind was with Don Balducci. He says "mi tesora." Now, I checked in Italian, and tesoro, which is treasure, is not. It stays male, so it should be "mi tesoro," although he's talking to a girl. So, there's stuff like that, and then there's situations where the last letter of the word is supposed to change. Depending on the amount of people that are being referred to that didn't. And it's really easy to find this information. So I was kind of a little bit disappointed, I guess, that this wasn't, taken care of. It's not really a problem. And I honestly don't really care, but it just kind of sucks. Like, oh, cool, they're adding a new language, but it's not like well done, I guess. To most people, it won't really matter. It's more like a personal thing, since I enjoy languages and I speak a language similar to the one that was being used. All of the issues kind of threw me out of the experience of reading, but for most people, this won't really be an issue, so you guys can really ignore this. Now let's jump into the world building, and here's where I'm gonna tear into Dante King and his world building because there's a few problems here. Now, like I said, these probably won't be a problem when you guys read the book, but just in case, I'm going to talk about them anyway, because it's very important to talk about these things because they affect the reading experience. And although I did love the book, the world building could have used a little bit more work. Now, it's good. There's Umbras, humans, and other worlders. They're like the 3 different types of people. Magic is somewhat abundant in this world, but it's not very directly common to like most people. And so it's kind of used, not in secret, everyone knows about it, but it's like it's not normal to see people using spells and fixing things with magic all the time. And then there's this element of magical technology, which I think is called Magitech. And it's very interesting and I really like it, but it's not very explored that much. And that's not really a problem. That's not an issue of world building. That's just like, it wasn't relevant, so we're just going to mention it and then move on, which is fine. There's a lot of multiple races. There's, every other worlder is a different race. there's like groups of them, right? Like there's fairies and fae folk, and they're all going to be split up into different types of fairies. Goblins are different from tigerkins and so on. And there's elves and selkies and, you know, all types of stuff. But they're all otherworlders. And then there's humans, and then we have Umbras in the middle. And so there's, you know, very important elements of racism there that occur. Not really a problem, but one of the inconsistencies does have to deal with it. So we're going to actually talk about those now. And keep in mind, to most people, these might not really matter. But if you're crafting a story, these are important elements, right? So the first inconsistency has to do with the main power that Justin had, or that, not Justin, sorry, I keep saying his name. I mean Matthew. That Matthew has, you know, in the first couple sentences, now, like literally in the first chapter, he gets this chip embedded into him by Lennox. And this chip allows him to affect other worlders, either boost or remove their powers. And one of the plot points here is he needs to make that effect last longer. And he eventually does do this, but there's never an acknowledgement of the fact that that had to be done. It's weird because he asks Lennox, hey, can you change this? Lennox says yes, and then he goes away, and when we come back and he needs to use it again, there was never an acknowledgement by Lennox to say, like, yeah, I fixed it, here you go, or anything like that. It's not really a big deal, but it's a small detail that was missed that if you notice, it kind of like messes with you, and so that's why I'm mentioning it. Now, the big problem here for me was Umbras, because early on, it's supposed to be understood that Umbras are a recent discovery. And it's kind of weird because Matthew was supposed to be on a scholarship as a athlete. Now, later on in the book, it's said that Umbras have been around for over 60 years and Matthew's only 30. I guess 60 years is pretty recent, but for the way that it was described early on in the book, it's almost like if Umbras were only discovered in the last 5 or 6 years and the racism was a really recent thing, not 60 years old. And this is a problem because Umbras are supposed to have physical abilities on par or better than Olympic athletes. You know, the epitome of humanity in terms of athletic ability are, you know, chump change for Umbras. So why did he have a athletic scholarship if he was competing against humans? It didn't really make sense. And maybe I misunderstood something there, and it's my fault. But at the very least, it's confusing, and it doesn't really make sense that there's like 2 different timelines going on here about Umbras and how it affected them. And it's not really that big of a deal, but it's a problem that I noticed. And the last thing here is fawns. Some of them, like, they're goat-legged because fawns are half goat. But some of them get described as having deer legs. Now, why is that? Is it because fawns are just any type of creature, half-human creature that has the lower body of a small hoofed animal? And if that's the case, it needs to be explained. Or is it because there's different types of fawns? Or is it, you know, something that where Dante King was trying to show that although fawns are, you know, powerful in number, individually they're rather weak, and he was trying to illustrate the fact that their legs are really easy to break. But it wasn't, if that was the case, it didn't work that he used another animal to try to prove that their legs were weak, because it just adds confusion. Okay, the second big world building problem is the visions that Macy has. There's 2 situations where she has a vision, and the first one was fine. She had a vision and made her swerve out of control. The second time that she has them, it's voluntary, and Matthew says that he understands what the other character that's receiving the vision is going through because he saw it before. But when Macy had her first vision that related to Matthew, that's not the case at all. He didn't acknowledge the fact that he saw it. He didn't acknowledge the fact that it affected him the same way it affected Macy, because he was reacting to her swerving out of control. So that's a problem there. If it was acknowledged the first time that he also felt that, and then it was used as a plot point, now the second time it wouldn't really be a problem, but it's like retroactively he's trying to tell you that, hey, during that thing I did this, I felt this too, but it directly contradicts with what happened in the scene, and so that's not really correct. Now I think that these are just issues relating to the fact that Dante King is writing as he goes and not having it outlined ahead of time, and so it's not really a problem. It's just kind of a situation that arises from the way he writes. But it kind of sucks that there was so many of these inconsistencies and kind of plot holes, I guess. And it was something that I hadn't really dealt with before with Dante King, and so that's why it became such a big thing for me for this book. Now, the cover is great, the art is really good, and the fan service is well done. High quality, the scenes are very good, and I had no problem with the positioning / blocking of all the characters this time, which is something I've had problems with Dante King before. I rate this a 4 out of 5. I would give it a 5 out of 5 purely for enjoyment, but the fact that there was so many world-building inconsistencies and plot holes really dropped the quality of the book for me a little bit. But yeah, this is probably my favorite Dante King book, even with all the world-building issues, because, like I said, they really are not that big of a deal. They're just kind of things that I noticed that, as someone that's a big fan of world-building, kind of grate on me a little bit, right? So this is an attack on Dante King. I don't hate him. I don't dislike him. I really like him as an author and as a person. He's a really cool guy. I'm just, noting the problems that I saw with this book, because that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So, Dante King superfans, don't attack me. I'm one of you guys. I promise. And yeah, besides those inconsistencies, the only real thing that I have to note here is that you could tell that he was writing this at the same time as Creation Mage, because there's this phrase that he uses in both. And the phrase is that he uses the word thaumaturgical to talk about magical stuff. Now, this isn't really a problem, but it makes both Matthew and Justin sound very similar when they describe things in the exact same way. And like I said, it's not really a problem, but if you're reading the books one after another as they're being released, one, you notice it, and two, it kind of confuses you. You guys saw me saying Justin when I meant Matthew a bunch of times this video, so that's kind of the problem there. Again, it's not really a big deal. It's just something I noticed. Now, do I recommend this? Hell yes. This is probably the most interesting plotline and most unique premise that I've read from Dante King. And given that he has really unique premises and very well executed plot lines, that's saying something. Similar titles here, Creation Mage. And if you want to sprinkle in some not haremlet stuff, Dresden Files is pretty similar. I mean, there's that whole seedy underground with someone trying to figure out the crime elements. Although in the case of Dresden Files, it's someone on the other side of the law, right? So I think that's a good book to recommend for this. And yeah, if you guys did enjoy, please like and subscribe and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. If you're a Dante King super fan and didn't like that I ripped his world building to shreds, I apologize. But it was necessary to do. And in fact, I didn't really rip his world building to shreds. It was just kind of a few inconsistencies that I noticed. Now, yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please, like I said, like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. And thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.